want the government involved in my personal relationships. I don't see what business it is of the government's what I do in my marriage. There's one of them. Another is I think that this conversation tends to treat marriages that stay together as successful, which treats humans like a binary, and that's just not accurate of the real world. We've all known people who stayed together way longer than they should have. And that was a miserable life for them. I think everyone would agree with that. The other thing is that when you talk about fault divorce, what you're really saying is things that you're looking for things that are demonstrable to court. But anybody who's been in a relationship knows that there is a lot of nuanced and subtle and unprovable elements within that relationship that aren't really. It's impossible to give the court an accurate picture of the whole thing. Hold on, one last thing. The final thing is that I don't see why anybody would want people to be stuck in misery. I wouldn't want to be stuck with a miserable wife. I didn't want to be stuck with my wife. That's ex-wife. That's why I filed for divorce. I actually don't see how anybody could support getting rid of no-fault divorce if they actually think through what that would look like in reality.
I don't have a problem with no-fault divorce. I just don't think you should get paid if you want to get out of a marriage. Right? Why should you be rewarded to break the contract?
I think absolutely you should be able to walk away at the signing of a sheet of paper. You sign the sheet of paper, you're no longer married, you walk out the door, that's it, end of story.
But I don't think you should be rewarded with any assets or any money from the other party.
Chicken dinner.
Yep.
You don't get the chicken dinner.
Yeah, it's not a slave contract. You can't just like keep them held to you forever or whatever.
That's what it sort of sounded like y'all were.
But you don't. The key thing is you don't get anything if you decide to leave for no reason.
But here's the thing: you have marital assets, so they're going to have to be divided somehow. Do you want to just go 50-50 down the middle, even if one person brought in a lot more assets than somebody else, or someone has worked a lot harder than someone else?
It should go into, I would divide it like this. Well, the person that wants out of the marriage for no fault automatically loses 25% of what they were entitled to. So there you go. If they were going to be division of assets, then they only get 25% of what the assets that they acquired.
I mean,
I prefer more complicated than that, but I'm funny that way.
Yeah. I feel like that. So
there has to be a penalty for breaking the contract.
Why?
So I think the way that Tennessee does it, if it's a no contest divorce here, if it's a no contest, no fault divorce, you basically the only the assets that are gained during the term of the marriage can be split or divided, and then only over a certain amount. So in most cases, it's more trouble than it's worth to even figure out, because a lot of times those type of marriages that dissolve you're only together 2 or 3 years. What have you really built? Right? You have a house that has more debt on it than you care about, and maybe a couple of cars that are upside down as well. So by the time you sell everything, you actually owe something. So I think this is getting into the nothing burger zone, where you're talking around corners and only really talking about, at that point, you're talking about people like me. If I were to go out and somehow magically my wife and I split up tomorrow, and a year from now I married some hot young thing, and here I have all of these assets and she has nothing. And then 2 years from now that, she files for divorce because, oh my gosh, she can't stand me anymore. Imagine that. Then she would take half my shit. But in Tennessee, it wouldn't work that way, because I had the assets coming in to the marriage and she did not. So
like my problem with Glenn's suggestion though, like let's say Flow State marries a woman. 10 years later, she's ballooned out to 300 pounds. She's chronically depressed. She nags and yells at him. She has a drinking problem and she refuses to have sex. Now, she's not physically abusing him or cheating on him. She's just a miserable blob to live with. He only gets 25% if he wants to leave that marriage.
And it creates a conflict of interest as well, right? You'll have people engaging in violence or adultery so that they can qualify for divorce, I would think.
Or spreading
something like alcoholism or excessive drug use, I think would probably be accounted for on a fault, because that I think that would be a good reason, as well as that'd be a whole different thing with holding sex, but that is a important thing or whatever.
Let's take away
can't
that
really
she's
make
not
that
alcoholic.
but
She just drinks and she spends his money. Like, he's busting his ass 2 shifts and she spends all his money and on stupid crap from Target. So he comes home and there's all this crap.
He doesn't have to give her the money.
Normally, it's
Angel. Hold on. Can I address Angel? Go ahead, and then I'll address Angel. Angel, you're dumb fuck. Angel, you're dumb fuck. You have no idea what I believe. I've had sole custody of my daughter since she was 2. When I filed for divorce, I won sole custody, so legal custody. And then I won it again when she was 8, after I got out of jail. I have a lot of duty response. That matters a lot to me. You have no integrity.
I would also point out that child support really is considered separately by the courts, apart from marriage.
I didn't hear anybody talking about that yet, so yeah. I was not bringing that up at all because I considered it irrelevant to the discussion.
I would say stick to the focusing on how do we split assets and alimony payments and all that.
Do you guys think
there's already
that,
a
like,
formula for that?
And there is a formula for that, which you probably don't like if you're a guy coming into court for a no-fault divorce.
My second wife is from Arkansas, Little Rock, and I was in Toronto, Canada. So that divorce was complicated, although I got the first effort dismissed because I wasn't served properly. And I caught that as soon as that postcard arrived and dropped in my mail slot. And I looked at it and it said for domestic use only. And I thought, So I researched to set the VPN, turn the VPN on to Texas, and went to the Arkansas state legislature and read the rules. And yeah, they're really, really picky about someone being served properly in a divorce. And then I learned something that might benefit people here. I learned that you have a right to understand what's sent to you by your wife's lawyer. And you can call your wife's lawyer and ask them to explain everything, every sentence, paragraph, and whatever else. You can't ask for advice, but you have the right to understand it. So I made use of that right a great deal.
Unresponsible is not a word. Just
that was going to be my.
Now you can respond.
No, I was going to say, I was going to agree. It was irresponsible. Nobody's perfect all the time.
I don't know his particular jail issues. However, I will say that because the courts do favor women when it comes to granting child custody, whatever the mom is doing has got to be far worse if she's an unfit parent where he's got sole custody. So it sounds like in that situation, the kid's probably with the better parent.
Absolutely. I just saw somebody else say, Angel,
just the fact that they like, as she just pointed out, that they favor women is part of the problem.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that claim, though.
I think both parents should be judged based on their merits, not based
on
historically this is the better parent.
There's this biological reality that for the first at least year or so, the baby needs the mom to nurse it and stuff.
What are you talking about? These moms are putting the kids on Infamil. These moms are putting the kids on Infamil. They ain't nursing their kids no more. Stop that.
Formula, baby. Heavy.
Well, I don't want to go down the whole breastfeeding versus formula debate because that's a way off topic. But I think certainly once the kid gets past 2-3 years of age, either parent can do a good job of raising them.
Despite the whining of basically all men everywhere, the courts actually are gender neutral. The outcomes are not because of a bias in the laws. it's for a lot of reasons, but I think one of them is dudes just don't try to win a lot of the time.
Yeah, I've heard this argument from you, Flo. I don't. I mean, there's a percentage of that.
I know.
I don't think that it's like, I just don't. I just don't like.
Why don't you think that? Tell me why you don't think that.
Because it's your child. There's an innate thing whenever you have a child. I mean, it's a little bit different with the mother. It's more intense with the mother. So, there's more of a maternal instinct. And
that's demonstrably wrong because dudes abandon kids all the time, as do moms.
Yeah,
we went over this last time. You don't actually have a reason to support your belief. It's just a vibe thing.
So is yours.
I mean, there is some biological instinct women have toward their babies, but we've got women these days who will freaking abort their babies. So I feel like a lot of that primal drive gets overridden a lot.
Yeah. And I can explain it out more. Think about if you get divorced and you got kids and the kids go to live with the other parent, what options do you have available for explaining this to people who ask you about it? The courts found me unfavorable. I wasn't really interested in being a full-time parent. The courts are mean to me. Every single man who doesn't get his kids has one socially acceptable excuse.
Sure, but I don't think it's the majority.
I know you don't.
I don't think it's the majority that the men are like, fuck it.
I know you don't.
Like they decided, especially if they decided to have children or whatever.
I didn't say it's the majority.
So I have the opposite case to Flow State. I have a friend of mine in California who his piece of crap ex-wife, I think they were technically married. I don't know. She put that poor dude through hell. I mean, absolute hell. To keep his kid, as she did everything in her power to keep his child from him. She was even though she had a known drug problem and she had a known criminal issues, the judge still wanted that child with the mother. She still has partial custody. He's fought back a lot and gained ground, but I think it's very situational, obviously. But more men, I know more men that have had absolute or gone through absolute hell to keep their kids than what Flow States says, where it was not a big deal. It was fine. He did have to work at it, but it wasn't the end of the world. I mean, I know guys that were basically put into jail.
I mean, it was when I understate it, but it was very expensive and yeah, a lot of work. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I actually knew a guy in, you just reminded me of this actually. I knew some guys outside of Reno that owned a salvage yard, and I don't know how many people know this, but for whatever reason in that particular county, salvage yards and whorehouses are zoned the same. And so this piece of property became very valuable, and his wife knew or became aware that it was very valuable, and she wanted him to sell it. He didn't want to. And then it became very clear that she wanted a divorce to force the sale of this property, and then she would get half of those proceeds. She terrorized this poor man to the point of, we were in his kitchen at his kid's birthday party. I happened to be there at his kid's birthday party. They were in the kitchen talking. I was standing there. There's just another couple of adults there. She had a knife in her hand, chopping something up. He asked some very innocent thing about who was going to take which kid where and all of, how all this is going to go. And she responded, she didn't know. And hey, what about just signing those papers so we can get this divorce done? He said, look, I'm not going to do that. I'm keeping the place. I don't, if this drags out another however long, that's what we're going to have to do. I'm sorry. I just can't, I'm not giving it up. And she came at him with the knife, ended up somehow cutting herself. The police were called. He went to jail that night. I watched the whole thing happen. So
you watched the attack happen?
I watched it happen.
So how did it happen? How did they both get arrested?
No, they only arrested the dude.
How does that even work out at all? Like, I assume that you and whoever else was there like said what happened.
We were like, hey, what we saw is that she came at him with the knife. Somehow she got cut. Her story was he grabbed the knife and cut her with it. His story was he defended himself. He doesn't know what the fuck happened. And he went to jail.
So why didn't
none of us could swear that who had the knife and what, because she was trying to stab the dude. We couldn't swear on a stack of Bibles that, hey, this is what happened. The police always default, at least in the state of Nevada at the time, always default the man goes to jail. The woman stayed free.
Yeah, there's a specific law that I don't remember that is based off of, I have to remember the fucking name. It's based off of a feminist ideology where, yeah, it's basically the in a domestic violence situation, the police are required to arrest somebody, and it's usually the man. Somebody has to be arrested. Either one of them have to.
I got lucky.
Just curious, why did he not hit her with an attempted murder charge?
Did he get charged?
He spent the night in jail. We bonded him out the next morning. I don't really. After that, it was all the lawyers. And to be honest with you,
it was called,
I distanced myself from the whole thing.
Smart guy.
I'm gonna just be honest with you that I was like, look, I like you. You're a cool dude. We're not brothers, man. Like, this chick's crazy. Like, she's tried to stab a dude at her kid's birthday party.
And he's what?
Fucking nuts.
I do feel like he should have pressed charges against her, however, though. He should not let her get away with that.
The problem is who saw what?
He said, she said. Yeah.
Well, he had
to take the woman's side.
All we could say is that she started with the knife. She maintained the entire time the cops were there that he got control of the knife and cut her. That's what she said. Absolutely the whole time.
I mean, it sounds like she was the aggressor in the attempted murder.
She absolutely was the aggressor.
It doesn't matter.
That's what we said.
It also sounds like she was the only one who was willing to stand firm in her claim as to what happened.
Right. Yeah, she was the only one that was willing to say, this is what happened. We were all like,
she's the manipulator. She knows what she was doing. Right. She knew exactly what she was doing.
You got to play ball.
Men are sitting there like, what? I just don't understand. Can we just like talk, please? And you're like, she's like,
honestly,
he did it.
Honestly, we were like, we saw her come at him with a knife. There was some scuffling. Next thing we know, she's bleeding. That's what we saw. I don't know who had the knife. I'm not going to say. Now, me personally, I think what happened is that she never lost control of that knife, and she cut herself. That's what I think. I can't swear to it. Anyway,
right there, you guys. Look at my avatar. If you guys want to see things changed, right there. Vote for Glenn Lawrence for president.
Glenn Lawrence for president. Why not? President. So I have a story that happened to me when I was in Colorado. I had a female roommate, and I had female roommates.
No, Flo, you're not going to be the Reverend.
That's funny. I like that. That's funny. So I had I had female roommates. I had this one roommate, and I kind of knew she was a little bit psycho, but I didn't really think she was that bad. We started having disagreements about the bills, and I knew that part of it was because I had a girlfriend, and she didn't really like that dynamic or whatever. Because my girlfriend was watching my checking account, as women do. And she was asking me why I was paying so much for electricity and gas and all that. And I'm like, that's a lot. Like, I don't know. Fuck. I just write the check. I'm told how much to write the check for. I write the check. And I started asking questions, and my roommate started getting really pissy about it. And I refused to pay rent until I saw the actual bills, not a handwritten list of bills divided out, you know, all that. None of that shit. I wanted to see the actual bills. And so one night, I don't know what the fuck flipped her switch. I'm sitting in my room. I don't remember what I was doing. And all of a sudden she comes tear-assing up the stairs, yelling at me. I got to get out. I'm past, you know, the rent was due last week. Get the fuck out. I'm like, I'm not paying rent until, you know, until you showed me these bills. I'm happy to pay rent anytime. I can pay rent right now. She started taking my shit and carrying it down the stairs and throwing it out in the front yard, which as a man, and my stoic ass, I just walk down there, I pick it back up, pick up my shit, I carry it back upstairs, I put it right back where it was. And she's, you know, this goes on 2 or 3 times. And at some point she slammed the door on my hand hard enough to like draw blood. It wasn't a big deal, but she did that. And the neighbors had called the cops. Now I did not know this. The neighbors had called the cops. Cops show up. They pull me aside. Hey, what's going on? I'm like, hey, I got a lease. I live here. You know, this is my roommate. She's flipped the fuck out. There's some question about the bills, and I haven't paid rent because I want to see this, and I'm entitled to it. It's right here in the lease that I'm entitled to see the bills and all that. And he's like, have you ever been in a relationship together? And I'm like, hell no. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. I don't do that. And so apparently she said pretty much the same thing. And then the guy noticed that my hand was bleeding. He's like, hey, what happened there? And I said, well, she slammed the door on my hand a couple of times and it just broke the skin. It's not a big deal. I'm not, you know, not a big deal. He's like, well, that's assault, buddy. He said, somebody's got to go to jail. And I'm like, really? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, if you want to, we'll take her to jail right now. And I'm like, really? And there was no doubt that if I had said the word, she was getting put in the cop car. And I said, no, I can't do that to her. She's just pissed off. She's just mad because I'm questioning the bills. And I know that she's lying to me and she just doesn't want to come clean about it. But at some point she's going to see that she can't hide it and she's going to have to tell me the truth and all that. So I was like, she doesn't need to go to jail to learn that lesson. And so they called her, you know, they got her out there and said, hey, here's the deal. You're lucky. This man right here said that you can stay here tonight because otherwise you'd be going to jail. So if we get another call, regardless of what he says, you're going to jail. It's not even a question. Like we get another call, you're going to jail. And they told me to go upstairs, go to bed, whatever. I said, absolutely. That's exactly what's going to happen. I think my roommate spent the night at her mom's house. Which is, I think, what the cops told her to do is the best thing for her was to not be anywhere near me because any misunderstanding, if the neighbors heard her yelling at me or anything like that, they called the cops. No questions asked. She was going to jail.
Like do you think men are less likely to press charges against women?
Yeah, I had no interest in pressing charges.
Had a guy do the same thing, would you be more likely to press the charge?
Men don't press charges because it's like, oh, you're not a real man. You can't handle this situation. There's a whole lot of crap.
I don't know.
I think
try to not press charges
no, it's not
most. But is that why did you not do it out of like generosity or out of fear or shame?
Me?
Yeah, he did it out of generosity.
I was literally like looking at my hand going, it's not that big a deal. It's not, who cares?
So you did the stand-up thing, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I try to. I don't always, but I try to.
Well, I mean, the way that Glenn was narrating similar stories is that men are afraid to or ashamed to.
No, I think men are afraid to or ashamed to, honestly.
I'm just curious, like, suppose you.
I'm not saying that's all in every case. I'm not saying that's every case. I just think that men are afraid to at times. Or they feel ashamed that, like, if people know that they called they had their wife or girlfriend arrested because of assault, they'll think that they're less than a man. And I don't think that should be the case.
It should not be the case. Men got to get over that and recognize it's part of the legal game that you're in right now against the person.
Because I'm just wondering, like, Grid, suppose you had slammed the door and it slammed on her hand unintentionally. And she had some blood on her hand. do you think she would have filed charges?
He would have been locked up.
They wouldn't even question. They wouldn't even questioned. They would have asked one question. Did he do this? Yeah, he's thinking about. They wouldn't have asked her, "Do you want to send him to jail?" They would have grabbed.
Yeah, they will. That's the way. A victim has to press.
They
charges.
Wouldn't have asked.
John, you don't actually have any clue what you're talking about. Somebody has to press charges on assault.
Somebody has to press
you
charges.
don't.
Here's the
it would have gone poorly for
John.
her. Very poorly had she done that. Had that happen.
Yeah. So here's the thing. In my case, is that I was very clear that there'd never been a romantic relationship of any kind between my roommate and I. We were strictly roommates. I had a lease. I'd never dated her. I never wanted to date her. She was just a roommate. Had there been any kind of romantic relationship ever, one of us would have had to go to jail, only because there was no romantic relationship. That's the only reason there was a choice.
Can we put on record as well, Flow State? I'm the one who brought up the Duluth model and that somebody had to go to jail. Okay.
I was saying that, but my microphone was muted the whole time. I've been talking about the Duluth model for years already.
I don't know what the Duluth model is, but I do know that normally somebody has to go to jail. I muted my mic
on the side.
Actually, I think I do know what I think that we've gone over the Duluth model.
We've talked about the Duluth model.
That was no election.
We've talked about the Duluth model like a couple weeks ago.
It's all coming back to me.
Oh, it's coming back.
Yeah, John being a weirdo again.
So at any rate, Arthur Dia, I mean, to finalize your position on this, I think you're cherry picking a very specific example that in reality doesn't play out. So that's what I'll say. And I don't know that I'm wrong.
Who was that at?
I think he's addressing it to me. Yeah, my real name's Melissa. Yeah, but, so you're saying that the model of a woman who gets married in her 20s, has a kid, and then the man leaves and she has no job skills or way to support herself.
Well, hold on. That's actually, now you've changed it. Now you've changed it. You're now saying the man leaves her. Men generally do not leave in no fault divorce cases. That's almost exclusively, well, Flow State's the one.
Yeah, well, Flow State. You're basically a woman.
He's got to be different. He's got to be the guy. But generally, that's not true.
So if you've listened to James Sexton, who's the famous divorce attorney, he's done Stars, Hollywood Stars divorces.
I have worked with James Sexton. I've had him on. I've been on a show with him like multiple times. He doesn't say that like it's always the man.
Right. What he has said is that women do the paperwork of filing much more often, but he doesn't, in his opinion, think that women are typically the ones that abandon or cause the marriage to dissolve. He thinks it's a little more 50-50. And Glenn, you can correct me if I'm misunderstood.
No, that's true. He does say that. And he does say that, and I agree with him. Now, this is where people get mixed up a lot. They're like, oh, well, women file for divorce more. So they're the ones that initiate the divorce. No, they're the ones that file the paperwork, but the behavior that led her to have to do that doesn't necessarily make her the bad guy. It could have been the guy being a piece of shit and she's the one that's filing. The guy could have cheated and she's the one that's filing. It could have been the guy that left and that's why she's the one that's filing. Well, but it doesn't just because women file divorce more doesn't necessarily mean that it's her fault or his fault. There's more nuance.
I guess the thing is that the argument can't continuously change because we can keep shooting them down, but it's fine. In a no-fault divorce where a woman walks away from the marriage, she gets nothing. She's entitled to nothing. That's the end of it. Now, except for the division of assets accrued during the marriage. If there's a home that's paid for, if there are cars that are paid for, if there's a bank account with $10,000 in it, that should be divided. It's a no-fault divorce. Everybody takes the post-marital assets, split it, go your separate ways. Premarital should stay, individual. And who cares about your lack of job training because one of you's decided to just walk away. Now, on the other side of that, and in general, it's going to be the woman, not the man. We've already talked about that. And on the other side of that, in a at-fault divorce, which I think is the only real divorce that we can talk about, the punishments are built in. If you cheat, the court is going to be very unkind to you. Unless, there's like a really good, really believable story somehow. But go ahead.
Didn't we all just agree that no-fault divorce is a good thing?
As long as I do agree that no-fault divorce is a good thing as long as you're literally walking away with that. Like if my wife and I suddenly decided that we were going to split and we said, okay, you know what? It's over, done. Sign here, go down to the courthouse, sign here, sign there, split the assets, both walk away, no court, no nothing. Fine, great. No fault. Nobody's at fault. We just don't want to be married anymore.
So Grid One, just to kind of steelman your position, if a woman wants to walk out of her marriage for whatever stupid reason, you would do no alimony, but you would still divide assets 50-50, regardless of how much work the woman had put into the marriage or lack thereof.
Well, she's obviously both have put in work into the marriage. Both have.
And so you would still just go 50-50 though, even if the guy was working like 100 hours a week and she had one kid who went to school 8 hours a day and was sitting around playing tennis and eating bonbons.
Yeah, I would. I don't believe that there's any better way to do it than just divide the assets. Because
so our main disagreement then is
nobody can compensate people for hours. No, this is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous argument. I can't compensate you for hours that somebody worked. That's a red herring argument to start with because it can't be counted. I mean, it can,
so
but
it sounds like
how do we measure an hour of my time against an hour of your time?
As long as there's no alimony? Because that's different than that. So everyone here is agreeing with Flow State that they support no fault as long as there's no alimony involved? Because it's different from what most people say in this kind of manosphere, even Christian community, of being against
no, it's
no
not.
fault.
It's very consistent with what men state. It's absolutely consistent. What we state is that if a woman files for divorce for no good reason, or a man, either side, but if there's no good reason for the divorce, right? There's no infidelity, there's no abuse of any kind. You wake up one morning and get the ick and you just don't want to lay next to that person ever again. Or all of a sudden they smell like raspberries and you fucking hate raspberries and you just never want to see that person ever again. Whatever the fuck it is, it's no fault. There's no fault there. If you decide to walk away from the marriage, you get nothing but half the assets generated during the marriage.
I feel like you guys are still going to have a problem with dividing in half, though. If, let's say, the woman is sitting around at home doing her child rearing, and you have one man who's done a 9-to-5.
No, because we value that. You keep acting like child rearing is like this stupid thing that people just do. No, we value child rearing. Sure. I don't have a problem paying.
We're the only one that's valuing the child rearing. You're the one that's
like, we want you to stay home. We want you to stay home.
Let me give two scenarios though, and see if you think this is still going to be fair to go 50-50.
Okay, everybody be quiet.
Okay, scenario one, the woman stays home, the guy works 9-to-5 and makes $60K a year. Scenario two, the woman stays home, the guy is busting it, working 80 hours a week, builds a multi-million-dollar, we'll say, electrician company. He has multiple employees, and he's purchased a huge house. They have a pool. She's driving a Mercedes. You're going to divide all those assets that he just worked to bring to the family in half and give her half of that, even though she was doing exactly the same job as if she were married to the $60K a year guy who's, got a house with a big mortgage and drives an old truck and has some credit card debt? I feel like you guys are still going to say the wealthier man is getting the raw end of the deal to go 50-50, even if there's no alimony.
It's still better than what it is now.
Everybody in a divorce is gonna bitch. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no that's no true Scotsman. I mean, nobody's gonna be fucking happy.
Yeah.
That's
a
bad argument.
What happens, it's a sad situation because
you find me the happy person in the argument. Find me the happy person here. So here's where I will
see. Here's the thing is the woman is still making out more than she came in with, and that's fine.
It just can't be that plus alimony plus child support plus this plus that for the rest of our life. No, split it up half. Never see you again. See you later.
Yeah, at some point, like
and here's the thing: go ahead.
It's just not. You're just not able to divide things up fairly at that level. The courts aren't able to do it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you say he built a multi-million-dollar business. Well, the business would be an LLC that they wouldn't be entitled to anyway. You wouldn't split that. That wouldn't get sold. It would only be the assets generated during the marriage, and that would only
if the
be
man
the
was smart, he would have put all his
pool.
Property in the LLC too.
Right, but I was saying, because he's had a good income, he's taken owner's withdrawals, owner's pay, and he's bought a huge house, and they've bought nice cars, and she gets to go buy her Hermes purses.
Why would I have a problem with that? Why would anyone have a problem with that? You're literally saying you continually devalue the female end of just staying home. I understand it because you're a hardworking professional woman. You're an extreme
woman to be compensated if she stays home.
Well, I think when
you want the woman to be compensated because she can't work, because you think that not staying home is a problem, and you want her to get a paycheck, a continuous paycheck every month for some perceived lack of income and education, which is not true. Again,
I think we also gotta factor in those purses and those red bottom heels and all that stuff. Those are assets too that we gotta split down in the middle.
A lot of this stuff he's buying for you and the kids. He's not buying it just solely for himself. Right. A lot of these assets and things that he's buying is for you. So if it's divided, the things that he bought for you you can leave with. He bought them for you.
Those are assets.
Fine.
We got to split. Those are marital assets, like those red bottom
and
heels.
that's just like if he bought it's just like if my huge ass gun collection, right? We'd have to sell it, or I'd have to compensate the estate for fair value of those items.
Tragic hot air balloon accident over a lake.
Yeah, hot air balloon accident over the lake sounds pretty good to me. I'd have to get rid of my airplanes, right? So this is exactly what we're talking about. And men, you don't hear men bitching about that part of it. The only part that we have a problem with is a woman walking away and requiring a paycheck to do so.
What if it was
splitting assets that we both earned during that period of time is fair? Men are fair. It's what we do. We literally sit there our whole lives and go, "That's not fucking fair. You're cheating."
Not all men are fair.
We do.
Yeah,
I have a question though.
I know.
How would you feel about a 25% time alimony? Right, like if you're married for 20 years, she stayed home, she gets 5 years alimony, or he gets 5 years alimony.
It should be like unemployment. Like I said, you get 6 months, maybe a year. If it's a really long relationship, it doesn't take you that long to get back into the workforce. You can get a job.
It can take you a while.
Are you going to go back to school for 4 years, and he has to pay for your college tuition now?
So most alimony is time limited. It's usually not 6 months, but it's usually a couple of years.
Well,
yeah.
In most states, but not all. So Arthur Daya is coming at this from a point. Let me give you guys why I'm pushing so hard on this with her is because she's coming at this from a point of a woman who's an exceptionally high earner. I don't know exactly how much she makes, but if I would guess in the $400,000, $450,000 a year range, maybe a little more. And
looking for a side piece.
She's looking at this, huh? What's that?
I was just seeing if she was looking for a side piece. I'm just trying to drizzle.
Drizzle.
So she's looking at this from a very specific point of view, that if she had taken off 10 years of her life to raise kids, or if someone was in her position and they took 10 years off to raise children, that they would lose that ability to make that much money until they could come back up to speed and make that much money. And in the meantime, in her opinion, the woman is hurt because she's not able to do this, while the man is constantly refining his craft. Although, to be honest with you, Arthur Daya, that's a straw man fallacy in and of itself, because that's not true. Men often have to give up things to be in places their family can live. The reason I didn't get married early, partially, is because I was traveling all over the damn country and I couldn't raise a family, and I didn't even try because it would have been too terrible. There are tons of men out there that could make more money if they gave up time with their kids, and they choose not to.
You and I have basically done
this is the problem. Yeah, so this is the problem, that you're looking at this through a distorted lens, where I'm trying to look at this through the everyman viewpoint. I'm trying to look at this from the guy that makes $100,000 a year, and you're trying to look at it through the lens of a woman who potentially could make $400,000 a year but is held back. And that's the disconnect here that everyone's fighting against, is because a typical job seeker that's going to make $120,000 a year, taking 3 years off is nothing to their career, especially now that many people can work from home. So the argument from your point of view, while somewhat valid, it falls apart when we start adding the other pieces of no fault. And now in an at-fault divorce case, you know what? If you had married and you had given up that position and been been a good wife and had gone out and raised the kids and taken a few years off, and it was going to take you a year to catch up, then sure, I could see you petitioning for, hey, you need to pay me for a year and whatever classwork I need to catch up, because I made this sacrifice during the marriage for you. But that's something that would only happen, by your own words, if he cheated on you, right? Like if your husband did something that was so heinous that you felt like he needed to leave. So we come back to the basic logic fallacies of no true Scotsman. We can't find it. We can't find an example like you. You are not the norm.
No, I'm the exception.
I have to deal with what the normative is. You are the exception to the rule.
I did the same thing as you, as I worked 80 to 100 hours a week for years.
Yes.
Working on a career, and specifically not having children during that time, or being married during that time, with the goal of having a kind of high level career. Now, the problem is that I have a uterus and you don't. So it's a little harder for me to start a family.
You have a time limit and I don't. I could do that. I could do that, and you can't. You can't marry a person 11 years younger than you and have children like I did. If you marry someone that's 11 years younger than you, nothing changes about your ability to.
I guess it's theoretically possible. I would not do that. No.
But again, even if you did, it doesn't change the math.
Right. It doesn't change the biological
problem that you have
clicking and running out, right?
Right. The problem you have is biology and an expiration date. And I'm sorry. I understand I understand everything about your story. I can't change your story.
So what's hard for me, so let's talk about just me specifically and not women in general. What's hard for me is if I apply this to myself, and I didn't go to, maybe I went to a little bit of college, but got married early at age 20, 22 or something, had children, raised them, and I had a husband that wanted to leave, or even if I felt like I needed out for some severe reason, I would be totally screwed. I would be totally dependent on that man at that point.
Well, you
and that's
think
what
that?
scares me.
I don't think that that's true.
So that's why in my life, I've built all
reject
these safety nets in with a college degree and a career and all this crap.
But I reject
creates a
this. I
safety net.
reject this.
That's
I
not
have
worth
look.
it.
I have a young lady right now that's going to be on the show in a few weeks. As soon as she gets back from China after her visit there, she's going to come on. She just got out of Columbia. I want to say she's in finance. It could be medical. I don't know. Honestly, I don't listen that much to woman prattle, so I don't know what her degree's in. But she's highly educated. She's exactly like you were back then, right? She's extremely highly educated. She already makes a lot of money. She is at the point now where she's making the determination of, hey, do I go get a job or do I go get a husband?
Mm-hmm.
And she is leaning towards going to get a husband because she's seen women like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking
because she knows she can go back into the workforce in 5 years and work just fine and use her degree, and that money's not wasted and everything will be fine. It's a matter, there's just timing. There's just timing involved. You can do it. Well, not you. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. That's very mean of me to say that you can do it.
I'm the exception to the rule, though, because the gentleman may not know. I'm a cardiac anesthesiologist, and then I'm also board certified in critical care medicine. So I work in the ICU to take care of patients after heart surgery. So it would be very difficult for me to have kids and then say at age 35 or 40, go back into medical school and get a degree and then get into residency. Like it just, you don't see that happening. You don't see that happening.
Right.
You have to make a choice. You have to make a choice.
Right. So you have to make a choice. And don't get me wrong. Like I love what I do. I get excited when I see the cases on the docket for the OR the next day. And I love taking care of my patients. Now, I do, just on a personal level, I do miss the fact that I haven't had a child. I would love to have a baby. There's definitely a very strong maternal instinct there of wanting a baby to raise. And I think that, on my deathbed, I'm going to be like, yeah, man, I ran another code today. Or am I going to be like, yeah, I raised a child, which is more important in the long run. And I very much see that in the bigger perspective of life.
Yeah, because your boss isn't gonna love you like your child is forever. They'll just throw you in. If you quit the next day, they said, "Okay, see you later." But yeah,
well, no, that's why we're trying to beg her back because there's a shortage of what she does.
Well, yeah, that's true.
One of my cousins.
They'd be mad about the loss of service, but no, you're right. I mean, they could. I'm not irreplaceable. They can find some other doc. Like they desperately need me that bad. You can always find someone else to do the job at some point.
Again, I understand your situation.
I don't know that I would looking back. I don't know that I would have done it any differently because I would like my dad, who was like, you heard me say that I came from a very based Christian family, 2 parents in the house, mom and dad. Mom stayed home, homeschooled us. I was homeschooled from 5th grade till 12th grade. So it wasn't like I didn't have the role model of an intact 2-parent Christian family to look at, but both my mom and dad emphasized you have to have a career and you have to be able to support yourself. And they pushed me and my 2 sisters into career fields where we would be
propaganda.
Able to do that. So
propaganda.
But what's curious, John, is that it's coming from non-feminist Christian household, right? That they are pushing their.
They infected all of us. It's been infected.
My sister is
it's all been
aerospace
infected.
engineer. She worked on the shuttle program until it went defunct, and she now works for Boeing, and I guess designs planes with wings that fly off or something. But she also has a high power career. and she does not have children. She's a little bit younger than I am, but also does not have children. So she has a little more time than I do. But it's just interesting that, and I know that for my father looking at his little girls going, God, I got to make sure these three little girls are protected and that they can take care of themselves and aren't dependent on a man, because he watched his own, a couple situations. He watched his mom, his dad died when he was 7. So he watched his mom, who had stayed at home, have no job skills and have to figure out how to suddenly be a single mom. And then he watched his sister, who got married and age, I don't know, she was very young, like 19, 20, ended up getting divorced. Same thing, didn't have any particular job skills and was pretty much screwed by the divorce situation when her husband ran off with some other man. So when you see those kind of situations happen, I understand why, as a parent, he looks at his little girls and goes, oh my God, I got to make sure these kids can take care of themselves when they're adults, and I'm not here to protect them, that they're not dependent on someone.
And yeah, I don't think it's an either or either. I think like Grit is saying, you're just not going to be expected to make the same amount of money as if you put all your time and effort into a job. You're going to, of course, make more money, but why, if you have children and you can makes less money, why would you not choose that? Over, why do I need 500,000? I don't need what do you need this money for? You can live sustainably, with the normal.
Sure. I don't even live off most of what I make. Most of it just gets saved in my situation. I'm kind of the exception.
Drizzle.
The drizzle. I'm more the exception to the rule, though. But I think most women, because you need 2 incomes these days just to make it, with the price of eggs being $10 a dozen, most women do limit their work hours, but do work because the household needs the income. And so I think women are like 30% of the workforce, and most do have to bring in money to contribute to the family just to keep things going, with as expensive as everything is these days. But you always hear that women don't get paid as much as the men. But when you kind of dig into the data on that, it's really because most women limit their job and their hours because they want to be home for their kids. And so, no, they're not going to get paid because they're not doing as much work, because they're purposely limiting their job or career so that they can be home investing the time in their children and their family, which I don't have a problem with. I think that's a good thing for them to do. But yeah, they're not going to make as much when they purposely limit their work hours or their career in that manner.
So,
absolutely.
just so you guys have a little bit more background, she's a surgical nurse or anesthesiology nurse, or not nurse, doctor,
an MD, medical doctor.
Yeah, she's a doctor. Yeah. She graduated from medical school with, I thought 300 and a little over
$340,000, all medical school debt, no other debt of any kind. That was just medical school.
Yeah, like a doctorate.
That off. Yeah, she paid that off. She went to go buy a house with I don't know how much down. Didn't want to go $400,000 into debt. Saved another couple of years. Bought the house in cash. Everything she owns everything she has. She's 0 debt. And that so she's in rarefied air. So when she talks about this stuff and we're going, well, she sounds feminist or whatever. On the other hand, she's quite based and really ahead of the game. So it's this weird dichotomy. And the reason I've said what I've said is because she's just in a different situation than most people. And she put herself in that situation. Nobody, she made decisions that led to other decisions. And at this point, to be honest, I think that, and I don't know if I've told you this, Arthur Dye, I probably have. You really need to look into maybe adopting or something like that when you slow down enough to be able to hang out with a kid and just be a parent for a few years, and that's what I think you ought to do.
No, I agree with you. I would love to adopt. That's actually a goal to adopt. Being over 35, it's it becomes more and more risky with every year to have a child. I mean, certainly women over 35 have kids and they're fine, but your risk statistically of genetic birth defects like Down syndrome and whatnot does increase. And that's just a fact. You can't get around that. Even for men, when if you're going to have a baby with a 60-year-old male, even though they can, there's still a higher risk of birth defects from a much older man.
I'd say pray to God and try.
A guy in 20s or 30s or something, right? So just because I'm still young enough right now, I could probably do it and just hope and pray that the child wouldn't have a birth defect or a problem. But the risk is there, and it's higher than when I was 25. That's just how it is. And I do not believe in abortion, so I would absolutely not want to abort a child that we discovered had a birth defect in advance. So I, on some level, feel bad risking, having a child with some sort of problem versus just adopting a baby that's already happy and healthy, and we already know whatever problems.
Well, like in the Bible or whatever, God gave Sarah, I believe it was Sarah, a child at 50 or whatever, right? 60, as an old woman.
I don't remember her age. Pastor Glenn can tell us, but yeah, she prayed that God would open her womb, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't. Once you get past 50, I would 45. It all does get more and more crazy. But I would say pray to God and try. If you have a husband.
Yeah. So I'm also not married yet. So there's that. I would want to.
So that takes some years. So
yeah.
There you go. But
so I've been with the same guy for about 20 something years. So. Has it been that long?
That counts as married, I think.
But we're not legally married or married in a church, and we don't live in the same house.
Neither was
I need to harass him, but I've known him since I was a teenager, so I need to sit on him to get married.
Sounds like you're in a prime position for a drizzle.
That's what I mean.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's right.
That's right. Where's Beaten Cheeks when we need him?
Paging Beaten Cheeks.
He's probably out being a degenerate.
Cheeks is a reformed man. Okay, he is a reformed man. He's an incel now.
He's
reformed. All right.
Can't be an incel and go on dates every week. That's you literally can't do that. So
Beaton is just such a genuine guy when you hear him talk that you can't help but like him.
Cheeks is amazing. Cheeks is amazing.
All right. So next topic, we've beaten this horse thoroughly to death and into leather. So
just before we're all in support of no fault divorce. Is that what I hear?
Okay, hold on. No, I think we need to explain that.
You just want to get like a clip. You just trying to clip it.
I didn't mean to get back into it. I want you to all clip it.
I will explain it.
I'm looking for submission, not arguments.
I will explain it right here. As long as no fault divorce means that whoever is filing for no fault divorce, they walk away with no alimony and I guess a percentage of the marital assets, but I wouldn't say 50-50.
Whatever. I'll agree to those terms.
Here's the real
just to move on to the next topic.
It's not going to be a clean clip. It's not going to be a clean
I got Flow State to agree with me.
Glenn, congratulations on our amicable divorce. This is the best divorce I've ever had.
Thank you. Me too.
Here's your real problem, though, is that these laws are written for a society that's very degenerate. Most of the people in the U.S. do not believe, as in general, I think most of us do, as far as considering marriage a very sacred covenant between two people that should not be broken except in some extreme circumstance. Most people, they write the words, I will honor and obey, and the idea of the woman being submissive in a marriage is complete anathema to them at this point in our country. So you're writing laws for people who don't believe as we do and don't behave as most of us probably want to behave inside of a marriage. And so I don't know the best answer for that.
So what you're saying is
Can we address Nick here though? I want to address Nick here since you have his comment highlighted.
Yeah, now, I want to move this topic off of this, but and we can talk about this. We can talk about this. This is cool. I brought it up. So
what I'm saying is that as an interim, because one, we were talking about the laws the way it is. I would say where there's no way in hell we're going to get rid of no fault divorce right away. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
But in the interim, I think we should still have no fault divorce. But that just means that the wife or whoever is filing for the divorce gets nothing.
Mods, get Christianity Unplugged the link and get him up here.
So that means like
you Glenn wants some penalty on some level of whoever's filing for the divorce and propagating.
Yeah, because I mean,
whoever's breaking the contract.
Because like there's not a contract. There's not a contract law anywhere. Marriage is the only contract to where you are allowed to right now. You're allowed to break the contract and get paid for breaking the contract. If you try to
break the contract without cause.
Without cause. Now, if there was a justified cause, if there's a justified cause, then that's different. Then that's not no fault. There's a fault. But for the time being, I think no fault should be in place and allow people to use no fault. But the penalty for using no fault is you don't walk away with any assets.
They should also be required to take a certain amount of counseling or something like that before they're allowed to just divorce.
I was going to say, here's my idea that might help is to require, rather than just handing out a marriage certificate for anyone that shows up in the courthouse and asks, what if you made people fill out a prenuptial agreement so they know what they're actually agreeing to and signing?
What do you think a wedding? What do you think a wedding certificate is?
Most people don't go line by line down marriage contract law and have never thought through what they're getting when they go and file.
Have you met most people? You need to meet most people. You've been hanging around with
doctors. Most people are dumb.
Long. Yeah.
Most people won't read that stuff.
People are allowed to make bad decisions, and it's really not any of our business what happens in somebody else's relationship. You have no consideration in the contract, so I don't know why you would want to impose yourself into somebody else's relationship. And finally, I think part of the problem with relationships is that people are looking at them too much like contracts and not enough like relationships.
That's true. But the reason why I think that is because there's an incentivization now, or what's been weaponized as the divorce court system, to where one party seems to be getting rewarded for breaking the marriage covenant or vows, and the other party is having to pay for someone that wants to leave the marriage when they may not want the marriage to end.
But in the eyes of the courts, this is contract law. They don't.
That is contract. So then, if it's covenants, you're right. So if it's contract law, why is the marriage contract the only contract that you could break and get rewarded for it?
That's why I think you should have prenups and maybe force people to get a prenup before every marriage, so they have to actually.
It is a prenup.
The courts are only involved to divide assets.
But then, what about this? What about we just remove anything that's incentivized in our current marriage law structure and make it to where people that get married, they realize like, oh, they both lose.
They both do lose.
They do realize they lose. Yeah. I don't know anyone who goes into marriage thinking, yeah, I'll just divorce. There'll be no problem.
I could pull up an article from a woman that said that, she wants her first marriage for money and then her second marriage for love. I mean, I could do it right now.
How do you find it?
I just don't think that's most people. Most people.
It's definitely not most people.
I'm not saying it's most people, but it's definitely not most people. But what I'm saying is that that's what people are willing to post these days. These are articles that magazines are willing to publish these days. That's the problem.
How are you finding it though? Like, what are you searching for that you come across these insane women?
Okay,
I don't know. Google.
I want to get Christianity Unplugged up here, but let's Arthur and I, we understand your position on it.
You can move me and put Christianity Unplugged on if you want to. I don't mind.
I won't boot you, but you're welcome to step down. I try not to boot people unless they're rude or lewd. 420 Moon. Who is married on this panel? I am. Glenn is.
Flo is.
I don't know about.
I mean, I consider myself that, but a lot of the more hardline Christians would not.
Well, because you haven't got a marriage license.
Well,
I am not married, and I don't know our other guests.
I could send it to Nick. I'll send it to Nick. Nick, check your Discord.
420 Moon. I've been married 19 years.
And congratulations!
I look young, right? Yeah.
I want to give you props real quick for owning several planes, but not coughing up $25 a month for 10 StreamYard spots.
I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I did. It sounded like you had limited spots, and so somebody needed to drop.
No,
I
just,
no.
Like,
he just doesn't like.
Don't like more than 4. I don't like more than 4 up here. I've had all of the spots full before. It just devolves into everybody trying to talk over each other and all of that. I don't like it. No, we can have as many. We can load her up.
Good deal.
But
it's an aesthetic thing. It's an aesthetic thing that grid.
Oh no, I get it. 10 is a lot to handle.
Man. It's raw copium.
You know what's a little bit interesting about marriage, and I see this as a doctor. We do consents before any procedure. We will sit there and tell the patient, you have this % chance of this bad outcome, this % chance of that bad outcome. Everyone can probably quote to you that there's a 50% chance that their marriage will dissolve. And yet everyone, for the most part, goes in thinking, oh, that won't happen to me.
Yeah, because they are, hopeful, as they should be. But just because they're hopeful, if you don't have the tools in place to make sure that your marriage doesn't, end up getting divorced, then you are setting yourself up for failure. Most couples are not going into marriage with the tools in place to, secure their marriage or to make sure that their marriage is not a statistic.
I don't think there are tools that exist because you don't really know what marriage is like until you're married. There might be there are things that can help.
No, there are tools exist. It's just talking to the older people that have been married for X amount of years that have done it better or done it longer than you. Like, how have you guys done this? They have tools.
Well, not all of them have good advice. A lot of them are like, I sleep with my secretary and I get drunk every night.
That is true.
All right, we're welcome.
And optimize for marriage as well. Like, we know that people who have less promiscuity are less likely to get divorced. The more religious they are, the less likely to get divorced. The more
religious they are, the more that they're involved in their church community, tend to be less likely.
Yeah,
to
that's actually more accurate.
The more religious,
they hold each other accountable.
There's a correlation to high school education. Having kids after age 20 correlates to that rather than when you're in your teens, even if you're married at that age. So there are things you can do. What's up, Christianity Unplugged?
7 kids.
Congratulations, sir. That is phenomenal.
All with one woman. She crazy though.
How many men though?
What's your take on this? Because you've been active in the chat.
My take on what?
What's your take on no-fault divorce?
He thinks it should not be a thing at all.
No, there's no such thing biblically. It's an abomination for the sight of God. Practically speaking, I can see a use for it because the courts are so screwed up. But the courts also hate men and want to screw over men and kidnap their kids contrary to natural law and give them to the crazy single mothers that ruined them and raise them to be deadbeats.
Do you believe in natural law or God's law?
Natural law is actually by God, is God's law,
well,
according to creation.
Colloquially, natural law is different or deviates from the Bible, from biblical.
No, it's not devious from it. It's in conjunction with it.
How do you define natural law?
I disagree with
natural law would be essentially
So
essentially, it's not initiating harm.
Essentially, it's the Ten Commandments. According to the Westminster Confession of Faith, essentially the moral law you can find in nature is essentially the Ten Commandments.
It's not initiating harm.
Yeah, it's part of the Ten Commandments.
Harm principle is we could have that argument at some
colloquially.
Yeah,
I'm just
defining it for you.
agree and other people. I mean, it's not
like hey,
Grid, do you check the back chat real quick?
Yeah, I'm checking it now. All right, man. We'll see you back, man.
All right, peace.
Peace.
Later,
He'll be
Glenn.
back. He'll be back. Look, just so we can keep this flowing kind of smoothly, let's kind of limit the conversation to no fault divorce.
Okay.
And let me help you out, Nick. I'm only for no fault divorce where you're truly both have and there's some, we can get into all of the different steps, but at the end of the process, because you're both one of you is saying, I just don't want to be married anymore, and there's no other reason, and you've gone through all the counseling and everything's said and done, and you're just not going to reconcile. You sign the papers and you walk away. You split the assets gained after during the marriage, not before, or during the divorce. Split the assets. You go your way. She goes her way. That's the end of it. That's the only style of no fault divorce that I find acceptable, only because it doesn't. The woman doesn't get a paycheck and is not rewarded for just leaving, or the man. Either way, drizzle. I know what Flo's going to go with there.
See, I'm going to refer to the Bible. I mean, that's.
I understand that you will, and I agree. And in a perfect world, which we do not have, I would agree with you. The problem is that currently we have laws, and marriage is a secular institution at the moment. And as long as it's a secular institution, then we have to follow secular laws. If it were up to me,
I got in trouble for not doing it. I got in trouble for not agreeing. I got in trouble for not agreeing. So
yeah, I not agreeing is fine. I don't, but if my personal belief is that I do not see why secularists even get married to start with, because there's no union under God.
It's a natural institution, and
I think that's
under God, whether they recognize it or not.
It's a cultural institution. It's a cultural institution.
If you look across,
right, I could go with cultural institution, but it's not an. I don't think it's a natural institution.
I'll call it a natural institution.
I mean, even if you look at animals, there are many animal species which pair off, and there's a number of them which actually bond for life and will have the same partner for life, even like swans and stuff, right? So if you look across all cultures, you will see very.
But there's also animals that basically screw and leave and then eat the eggs. You can't really use animals as a.
Varies by
so that's why you can't do natural law.
It's an imperfect analogy.
It's not a perfect analogy, but it's just to say that if you look at the human species, men and women have this tendency to pair off with each other and go have kids. And you cross many cultures, you see that they tend to stay together with those same two.
Yes, people. There's lots of hypotheticals out there that we can use to illustrate singular instances. I'm just saying that my argument is, just to steelman it for myself, my argument is that the only way no fault divorce works is if you truly go your separate ways, divide the post-marital assets, and just call it quits. That's the only way it works. Otherwise, one person is paying another. Mm-hmm. We lost Flo. Flo's gone. I think he hit the wrong button.
Couldn't handle it.
He'll be back.
Come back.
He'll be back.
He was Spurgeon. No, that's the storyline. No, he's not back. He's gone.
That was the wrong button.
It was the wrong button. Yeah, I missed John.
That's right.
I was like, you know what? Fuck this conversation. I miss John.
I don't have a rage quit button yet. If I had a rage quit button, I'd have thrown that up there.
Love you too, buddy.
I don't rage quit. I just rage keep going.
So that's my argument, is that because and most of this is because we have secular marriage, and that's it, because that's the only place it counts. Go ahead, Flo, man. I'm not, but that's my argument, right? Like that's when, now, Nick, I don't know what your argument is, because we kind of got mixed around there at the beginning, but that's my argument as to why no fault divorce is okay.
My argument is there's no such thing as no fault divorce. It's a legal fiction. Yeah, it exists legally, but it's a fiction. And
by that, are you implying that there's always some level of fault in a divorce?
Absolutely. In the sight of God, there is a fault.
Yeah. It's a legal term. It's not an absolute statement of no
it's
fault.
a way to facilitate people getting divorced instead of bogging down the system. That's essentially what it is, practically speaking. Bogging down the system is a way to get people divorced and go their separate ways.
So why would you need a secular institution to enforce rules for couples regarding their divorce instead of just leaving it in God's hands?
Because a secular institution shouldn't be secular.
Okay.
I mean, your civil magistrate should serve Jesus Christ. They're obligated to.
What would you do with people who are not Christian
and observe? Well,
is this too off topic? Is this question too off topic?
No, they should observe Christ's law because He's Lord, whether they're regarded in that or not.
What? I don't know. That's
so. Nick, what would you prescribe?
That means that they have to provide.
This is going down. This is going down a tangent.
Christians. That's a whole separate thing, though. It's a whole separate.
Yeah, this is a tangent. What I'm hearing is that he's not going to really engage the conversation or the topic.
No, I'll engage the conversation as far as you want.
So, Nick, if you have two people who are not Christians, no particular interest in Christianity, and they decide they want to pair off and get married in some fashion, what would you have them do in your sort of perfect scenario?
Why? Why not just have like a legal partnership of concubinage?
That's basically what a marriage contract is for the government.
No, like Dabney talked about this when like the feminism came in back in the 19th century. It's like, you just leave whenever partner decides to leave. Why not just have like a legal concubinage? And you just part your separate ways. Just part your separate ways.
Define what
That's not marriage, it's concubinage.
You're making distinctions without a difference, I think.
No, that's what they call it.
What he's saying is that what we call marriage now secularly is not actually marriage, and it's really just a partnership with a contract.
Okay, well this is a semantic issue that's really yours. That's fine. I'll agree with you, just because I don't care what you how you feel about what real marriage is. But as far as the institution is now, that's what we're talking about.
Like what?
But I had a question. I had a question though for Grid before I lose it.
Yeah, man.
You said that the only way that you see no fault working is how you described. Does that necessarily mean then that you would want laws to enforce none of the other types of no fault divorce working?
No. So I believe that at fault divorces are the only real divorces. But I recognize that as the way the laws are written and the way the world operates right now, we're not going to get no fault divorce removed. We just won't. It's not going to happen, right? Too many people are for it. Too many people use it as a tool. Too many. It exists. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. It just is what it is. Okay. I recognize that fact. I stipulate that fact. Okay. So the only way that I see it the only way I see it workable is the way I described it, as basically, okay, if you just wake up one morning and your partner smells like raspberries and you fucking hate raspberries and they got to go. Okay. If that happens and you decide that you want to leave, then you can, and guys, I'm going to pause 1 second here. Guys, you can't talk over each other. Okay. You can't. I'll having to start knocking people off the panel. This is why I normally keep it to 4 to 6. We got 7 up here now, so it's gonna get real busy real fast. All right, now I'm gonna just finish my point. And Flo, I know you got something to say, so I'll let you go, or you should go next. The only way that I see it working is the way that I described it. It's a little different than what Glenn says, but not by much. And that's only because I don't believe that a woman who can wake up one morning after 5 years of marriage, 3 years of marriage, no kids, no nothing, wake up and say, you know what? I just don't like this bastard anymore. And go to the court, say, I want out. I'm punching out. And the court will reward her a paycheck because she lost weight, lost time, lost wages. She hasn't been able to work or whatever. This is wrong. And this is that's why we really shouldn't have it at all. And I don't recognize that. Huh?
It's the woman at the well.
Take the mic away from your mouth, man. Thank you.
Someone's breathing a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I didn't hear it. I have my I actually have my speakers down because some of you guys get loud. And that's the only way I see it working. Okay. That's it. If I'm wrong about that, please give me an example where you see it working differently. I don't see it working any differently than that. That's my argument. I think it's the best method.
So I think that the well, right?
Okay,
the
go ahead.
At the well in the Bible, right? Who?
Me. I think that by definition, a divorce means it didn't work, right? And I think that each relationship, each divorce, each situation, there's too much variance to be able to standardize, okay, this is fault, this isn't fault, this is acceptable, this isn't acceptable. There's so much gray area there that no case will ever fit it cleanly. And I would just as soon have government get all the way out of it.
I like that too.
That sounds fantastic to me, but I don't see why we would try to keep government involved in something, especially if you're coming from a Christian angle. I don't know if you are or not, but for some of the other guys, I don't know why you would want a secular institution enforcing secular rules that kind of correspond with religious laws when you really think it should be like you're just crossing streams in a lot of different ways. Right? I think everybody would be happier removing the government from it altogether. I'm not even religious, and I would be happier removing the government from it and leaving it in God's hands, if you will.
Well, again, I agree with you. However, I just don't see a path for that to happen. I would actually, I think that I think you're right about that. I would 100% agree with that. The problem is I don't see a path where that can happen.
Fair point.
I could be wrong.
I would love to address this question. So like before 1950, we had a religious government that acknowledged Christianity was the basis for our laws. And they had an interest in preserving marriages because they didn't want to destabilize families, which is the basic unit of all civilization. So they had an interest in keeping marriages together. They didn't want to raise effed up kids.
First Amendment. First Amendment.
I don't care.
It's not a religious nation.
I don't give a crap what the First Amendment says. I care about what the Bible.
I'm illustrating that you're just wrong. It has never been a religious country.
And the Supreme Court acknowledged you're a Christian nation, by the way, historically, and the states had established religion for a time in the United States, by the way.
When?
They did. And then that was before the Civil War. They had state established churches. Yeah, in the colonies, yeah. And
that's not America.
Yes, it was.
That was Great Britain. Okay. That was Great Britain.
Not the America you like, but it's historically what it is. And
that was Great Britain. The colonies were not America.
The Lord.
The states.
I don't care. All I'm saying is what the Bible says. I don't give a crap what America says.
Then why are you giving me history that you don't know and don't care about? I know. That's why you're a moron.
About what America says. No, I'm not a moron. I follow the Bible. I follow church history. I don't care what certain politician says out of his ass at 1900 years.
I don't care about your religion.
To annul everything that happened before. I don't care what you say about my religion. I believe Jesus Christ is Lord. He established this world and enacts a certain order. And I follow that order. And I think all societies, all the world is obligated to follow his order. And if they rebel, let him smash them in pieces and let them repent and come to Jesus Christ.
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. That's not
right.
your problem.
No, I can preach it and I can teach it and I can support government that goes behind that.
I was referring to the imposition of the crushing.
Like Constantine, like
I am a direct descendant of Constantine, by the way, so you're welcome for the Bible, buddy.
What?
I'm a direct descendant of Constantine, so you're welcome for the Bible.
So am I. I'm a descendant of Charlemagne. I'm a descendant of what's another one? Oh yeah. Richard the Lionheart.
What's an optimal age for marriage?
Who cares?
I don't. Okay.
My point is, the Bible, Christ the Lord describes marriage, and he gives basically is adultery, and those.
How does the Bible define marriage?
As a union between one man and one woman.
No, it doesn't.
Into one flesh is a sacrament to God.
The Bible is full of men
and
who had tons of women.
Tempting and saying unto men, is it lawful?
That's irrelevant to the truth of the matter.
No, it's not. That's very relevant. It's in the Bible.
Have you not read that which he which made them at the beginning, made them male and female, and said, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and the twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore there are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder.
And the part about there only being one wife, that's interpreted into it. That must be the book of
Jesus
Unplugged.
Is wrong? Okay. I guess Jesus is wrong in Matthew chapter 9.
He just reinterpreting.
Read it again.
All had more than one wife. Jacob, David, they all had more than one wife in ancient Israel.
Was it meant to be that way? No.
You're extrapolating that.
No. He says, wherefore there no more two, no more twain, two, but one flesh. Male and female. It was originally.
So why can't
one woman?
Why can't I become one flesh more than once?
Because that's not the original design.
That doesn't make sense.
It does. Okay.
Does Christ have more than one bride? Are you just
all right? That's fine. Yeah, you guys win.
So are you never supposed to remarry if your wife passes at a young age?
Yeah, Galatians talks about that it's no longer enforced because she's passed on to be with the Lord. You can remarry.
What if you marry at an extremely young age and you realize that the marriage isn't beneficial for either of the?
What are you talking about?
Dude, people get young so married at such a young age nowadays. They can literally marry themselves into
have you looked at the statistics? I mean, compared to how it used to be, people were getting married way younger than they are now. Now they're not getting married and having kids till like 30.
That's true. There's no consequence. There's no social ostracization. There's no consequence. We were dealing with different values and a different world order, basically, now than we did, 100, 200 years ago.
But
because women are not held accountable, neither are the men in some cases.
But we're planning ahead for the future, right? I mean, I got two boys.
That's why people need to repent and come to faith in Jesus Christ. And the state needs to recognize Jesus Christ as the South did.
Our government is just not set up, though, to ever recognize God, Jesus Christ.
Oh shit! Since when? Since when?
What?
Like I can give you the whole history. Like them recognizing
were deists, so they acknowledge.
Okay, so Psalm 2. Psalm 2. Okay, let's go to Psalm 2. Right. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against His anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and vex them with a sore displeasure. Yet I have set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I shall declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, thou art my son. This day I have begotten thee. Speaking of the Lord Jesus Christ. And that's repeated in the New Testament. I Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession.
Guys, this is fascinating. But the subject and the argument, no fault divorce, where people can just walk away, which, by the way, is mostly secular, not really a religious component to it. So let's kind of, not that I don't enjoy it. It's just the argument goes a long way, and Flo's got a show to start pretty soon, so I want to make sure that we get kind of everything done. So
Flo can't get too mad before he has his own show or whatever,
Sure, I can. I can get mad as fuck. People tend to like it better if I'm mad.
I had
everybody loves seeing someone spaz the fuck out, don't they?
Oh yeah, it's fun, isn't
it? No fault would have been appreciated. My second divorce.
I was 26. 2 divorces under my belt at a young age.
Congratulations on both of them.
Both. Thank you, actually.
I mean, one of the best decisions I ever made was to get divorced quickly and not waste my life trying miserably to hold together a failing marriage.
Yeah, well, at least you had that wisdom. I didn't.
I can see that. I believe that.
I didn't have that wisdom, actually. My dad gave me that advice. He had just my uncle had spent like 15 years holding a shit marriage together, and then they got divorced anyways. And his advice was, don't do what your uncle did. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And that was a fantastic call. Shout out, Dad.
That's so sad. That's so sad.
Not as sad as if I hadn't gotten divorced.
No, I lived it.
If you're not committed, it's not going to make a difference. If you're not committed, it doesn't matter what your faith is.
And that's that's why the red pill exists.
The important part,
the old order has failed,
is to commit to yourself first each day. Because if you don't, you don't take care
the
of
red
yourself
pill in and of
day,
itself is
then how are you going to serve anyone else at your best?
I married an extremely religious young lady. It didn't seem to take, I guess. I don't know. 19 years old, we were already getting a divorce. And she was a Southern Baptist raised. Kind of one of the reasons we got married. Extremely possessive parents, and I wasn't a positive influence at the time.
You got her pregnant, didn't you?
No, I did not, actually. And she went through her senior year of high school married. That was one thing I made sure, even after we were married, that she finished school. It's not like she went on to college, but we just weren't. We were both in an early stage of both of our lives. Just like you were explaining, people live longer now, so the options are much broader for both male and females in today's environment. And this was in the 90s, so it only made sense that if we realized we were making a mistake that early, then it was an amicable parting of the ways.
Is there anything you would have done differently looking back on the decisions that you and her made?
I could say yes, but I don't want to lie. And it's hard to make judgment calls on information you have now and what would happen back then. You think you can, but it's kind of like and that's another Pandora's box of the possibilities that could have, would have, should have stuff. Because you make a decision with knowledge possessed in the future, you make a decision in the past, it changes everything. You can't just say, well, if I knew this, I would behave differently. It doesn't work like that. But I'm pretty sure that I would have behaved the same way, just because a lot of the way I was behaving at the time was my environment and upbringing. I was kind of a spoiled brat. And one of the reasons we got married was because we kind of eloped. And she was a minor. And the only real way to get out of kidnapping charges is, and that's literally what it was. It's kind of a unique situation. We'd been dating for a long time.
And, my second ex used to have kidnapping fantasies.
Oh, you got with a freak.
We never let that play out, but she mentioned it a few times.
She wanted you to.
We have gone far afield.
Yeah,
far afield.
Yeah, tendencies don't go well with no fault divorce.
So
no fault divorces are amicable and beneficial in some situations. They really.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like I said, I married a minor.
Yeah.
But
Nick, I gotta ask, man. I have to ask. This is trying to think of how to put this. So, the red pill literally says, "Do not get married," and that.
Well,
so how are you reconciling?
Rolo will say that. Rolo does not have the corner on the red pill. So,
well, this is my problem with the red pill is that red pill in and of itself that has some good tenets, and I think we've talked about this before, and I'm just going to keep talking about it. They have some good tenets, but by and large, it's just stuff that we've known, that men have been talking about since the 20s. It's just a name on a set of tenets that really don't matter, right? And
so like what I told Andrew Wilson the other day, you're unplugging from the gynocentric matrix, the worldview, and you're seeing the sham that's been sold you. And you're seeing for the first time, like, oh, you've been screwed. You've been told a bunch of lies. This is not how reality works. And so you awaken to that. You awaken to, a world taken over, or the West, you could say. It's not like that way everywhere, but it's infiltrated pretty much everywhere. But the West especially has been taken over by feminism. And the laws have been infiltrated. This Marxist or Jacobin feminism has infiltrated pretty much everywhere, and our laws are enacted to protect that. You awaken to that. I awoke to that a little bit before I got totally screwed while I was still pastoring. Not totally. It was a partial awakening.
Okay, that's an interesting point. So, as a pastor, how were you not pretty based, right? Like this is I'm changing by the way, I'm changing away from the divorce issue where we're now going in another direction of red pill ish.
I was old ordered patriarchy. I was old ordered patriarchy. I did not understand the new order.
I don't understand new or old.
You say the word red pill and Glenn shows back up.
Yeah, I was old order patriarchy. I understood like scripture, exegesis, church fathers, reformers, up to the 19th, early 20th century. I did not understand completely how effed up the new order is that have been
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Houston, Texas.
That was a pretty happening place.
On a ranch or something?
Nope. Oil and gas business.
Yeah, I feel like Houston's pretty liberal, feminist. Is it not?
Yeah, but you have to understand my dad. He's an oil and gas guy. He doesn't. There's no filter. So, he's not necessarily Christian, but he tends to see the world as it is, and he's not what you would call red pill, but he's pretty not with the times.
How do you
and he doesn't care. How do I what?
I liked Glenn Lawrence and Tom.
I think he froze.
I liked being in that movie too. I didn't see that. I wasn't in that movie.
When I saw that, I was like, Glenn Lawrence wasn't in that movie.
But hey,
he's scared of heights.
I'm not scared of heights.
So I was actually fighting for the patriarchy in the Orthodox Presbyterian Church before I got zeroed out.
I'm just curious, Nick, though, as you were kind of growing up, teenager, college level.
I was Roman Catholic, so
you didn't like notice a lot of feminism among the women.
Oh, I did. I didn't understand. I was like, this makes no
with.
sense. And I was Roman Catholic, so I was like, this doesn't make sense either.
Oh, Roman Catholic. There we go. I'm gonna
I grew up Roman
old
Catholic,
Joe.
so
I'm gonna answer old Joe here for a second. Old Joe, I don't normally let as many people on the panel at one time because it's very crowded. Looks like did Flow State drop off?
Yeah, he stopped mid conversation.
He froze up and then
he froze.
Yeah, he'll probably hop back on.
No, I think
he
starting
gets a little
his stream
angry and then he
minutes.
pops off and then he gets,
I think he's starting his stream in a minute. But yeah, old Joe, I don't normally have this many people up at one time because typically by now it's devolved into 7 people just talking over each other. So but that's fine.
Okay, so
that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
So no fault divorce. So like Jesus, the woman at the well, right? How many men did she go through? He's like, yeah,
6.
And he faulted her for all of them.
And the man you're living with currently is not your husband, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the 6th one.
Yeah. There's